Thank you for the introduction. My name is Kelly Domrose. I taught in Hanover County for 15 years, and then I was home for 5 years. I was what's called an instructional technology resource teacher for 5 in Hanover before I stayed home with my daughter. And now I'm back at my daughter's school. We are not working today, but I'm back at my daughter's school, and I am the hardware person. So if somebody's computer stops working, I will go fix it, plug it in, usually is the problem. It comes unplugged. So I will troubleshoot problems like that. But I am a Mac girl. We actually use PCs at work. We do have, in my house, I have a PC. My husband works with the Math Science Innovation Center, and he uses PCs. So we have several of both that we use. And he's an Android person. I couldn't get him on board with the whole Apple thing, but I am Apple all the way, personally. I like how fast the computer is. I like that I open the screen and it just pops up, doesn't have to boot up. I don't lose speed. I've had this now for 2 years, and it's just as fast as it was the day I got it because it doesn't have a traditional hard drive in it. So it doesn't have all those moving parts. It has what's called flash memory. So it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but it ensures that it stays faster. And I haven't had any troubles yet with my battery either, thank goodness. So that's another thing I like about this computer. The battery stays charged a little longer than my HP ever did. So I'm going to show you some of the basics. If you do have questions, I'll leave a few minutes at the end to answer those, and we'll go from there. All right, so this is actually a MacBook Air. I see a few people have MacBook Pros. The Pro, of course, is a little higher end. It can do a little bit more. It's got more memory. It has more connectivity on the side. I have 2 what are called USB ports. So I typically only need, a lot of times I will have an external mouse. I will use I'm not in love with the trackpad, using my fingers on the trackpad. I'm old school and I like a mouse. So you can easily get a USB wireless mouse and plug it in to one of the USB ports on the side, and then you can just use the separate mouse. And then of course on mine I have a headphone jack and what's called an SD card memory slot. That's for the camera. So if I have typically your cameras are going to have SD memory cards, and I will pop it out of the camera, pop it in here, and it will load on my computer. The one downside to this particular computer that I have, it doesn't have as much memory as the PC that I have. The PC that I have has more than I could ever use, and this is only 128, so I typically have to back up some files. This one, the Air, does come with 256 gigabytes of memory as well, but at the time when I finally convinced my husband that I desperately needed a Mac, he was like, just find the cheapest one you can, so that's what I did. I was just happy to get the green light. All right, so you will see that there are different icons. I did clean up my desktop. This is the desktop. And it can be a little confusing, I think, because you've got a desktop computer, which is the big computer, or we call this background right here the desktop as well. So you can easily change. This is the default picture that it came with 2 years ago. I never changed it. But you can easily change your picture on the desktop if you want to. And there are different finger motions that you can use on the trackpad. So of course, one finger is just going to move my cursor around. With 2 fingers, if I have a web page open, with 2 fingers, I can slide up, I can scroll up and down with 2 fingers. Just go straight up and down, and you can scroll your page. So 1 is going to be just moving your cursor, and 2 is going to scroll your page up and down. You can also rotate pictures the same way. If you have a picture and you want to turn it, you can hold down a finger and rotate the other, and that will rotate your picture as well. I have Google Chrome downloaded. You can see right here, I have Chrome. The default program, or the default web browser, that they have is Safari, right here. I typically don't use Safari just because I use Google Chrome for everything. I have Gmail, and I use Google Drive, and so I use the Google web browser. But one of the things that I always, and I've been having a little trouble with it lately, and I'll have to look and see what that is. But when I type in a web address up here, you always want to make sure that you have the padlock and it turns green, because then you know that it's a secured site. Sometimes when I type in a website, it will give me, right now, see how it says secure and there's that green padlock? So then I can proceed. If I wanted to make a purchase online, I would make sure I have that. But I've had a little question mark or a little I with a circle around it lately and says this site may not be secured. So I wouldn't ever purchase anything unless you've got that security on there. Now, one of the other differences between a PC and a Mac is you close a window on the left side with a Mac. And then on the PC, you do it over on the right side. That took me a little getting used to. But of course, the red circle is to close the window, the yellow is to minimize, and then the green is to maximize. And you'll notice when I maximize it, my menu bar at the top disappears. Did you notice that? And so does my dock down at the bottom. That disappeared as well. If you take your mouse and just move it to the top, it will drop it down again for you. So when you maximize a window, don't worry that you've lost your menu at the top. It's still there. It's just hidden. So if you move back up to the top, it will slide down. Now you can, though, click that green circle again, and it will shrink your window a little bit so that you always see this at the top. So I do that. I have Amazon and Amazon Prime, and sometimes I'll watch a movie on my computer. So I will maximize it so that I don't see the menu bar and the dock while I'm watching the movie. Usually that's when football is on and my husband wants the TV downstairs, and I'll say, that's okay, I'll go upstairs. So this is your menu bar. You're going to see too that this will change with whatever you have open, whatever application you have open. And then the dock is what houses your apps. And I don't know if you can see or if the speaker's in the way, but there's a black dot under Chrome right here. And there's a black dot under Safari and under Finder. And that black dot just means that it's open. That program is open at the time. So if I was to open Microsoft Word, which is not preloaded, I had to pay for a subscription to Microsoft Office 360. Their version is called Sheets. That's what you use for their version of Microsoft Word, and it should come with it. That's one thing that's good about Apple. You can do more with it out of the box. It's got more programs on it initially. So they have, I did say Sheets. That's Google. I meant Pages. Pages is their version of Microsoft Word. So this is Microsoft Word, and you can see that little icon or that little dot has popped up. So one thing I want to tell you, I'm going to close it. I'm going to hit the red circle, but it's still active down here. There's still that dot under it. So if you want to quit a program, all you have to do is click on it, use 2 fingers to click on it, and then you'll see the option to quit. And I can click it, and it will quit it. So you want to use 2 because that's a right click. So you know how you have the left mouse button and the right mouse button on a mouse? In order to right click on the Mac with your trackpad, you use 2 fingers. So if I double click, or if I want to right click, I just use 2 fingers, and now I'll have the option. So if I just click once, it doesn't do anything on here. But if I click twice, or if I click with 2 fingers, I get my right, basically my right mouse button. And since I'm just on the desktop right here, I'm not inside a program, these are all the options that I'm going to see are going to be options that I have with the background, the desktop. So this is where I could change my desktop if I wanted to. So I could choose a picture either from my photos, or I could choose a picture that they have on here. And I can tell you right now, the only thing that I would want to find that's remotely interesting to me is a beach scene. Because that's my very favorite place in the entire world. There we go. I'm all set now. All right, so then I can just click out of here, and it will have changed my desktop background. You can do it from photos as well. You can see right here I could go into iPhoto and I could choose a photo that I have on my computer. So that's where I could change it to my daughter or our new little puppy that doesn't sleep. So this is where I could choose another location. If you have a picture in there, you could choose from there. All right, so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit at the top with the menu bar, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the dock and then some of the other options that are on here. All right, so first you've got in the menu bar, we have the little apple at the top. This is where you can find out about your Mac. You can go into System Preferences. That's where you want to customize your computer, and we'll look at System Preferences in a little bit. The updates, you can see the App Store, I have one update pending. So once I get home, I can, and typically it tells me I need to connect to power to do an update, but I could do that there. These are all of the recent items that I have open, that I've had open. So if I wanted to, because I rebooted my computer, I do that periodically. This computer is so easy just to close the screen, it goes black, you're good, you're done, and then I just open it back up and it's right there. So I do reboot it periodically, and when I do, you can see it shows me everything that's come up or that I've had open recently. Force quit, that's simply if a program's just not responding like you want it to and you want to force quit, you can shut that program down and it will stop acting up for you, supposedly. You can put your computer to sleep, restart it, shut it down, or log out. So if you've got two people, two different users on the computer, that's where you can do that. All right, Finder. This is going to be, these menu items are going to be related to what you have open down here in the dock. So right now, if I go into Finder, if I click on Finder, that's just finding my files. It's basically where I want to go to open a program or open a file. It's kind of like my computer on a PC desktop. So notice though that when I shift it, when I change it, if I click on Chrome, I want you to take a look at the top. Do you see how the menu changed up there? So now instead of it saying Finder, it says Chrome, and I have all of these options up here. So all of those options are going to change based on the program that I have open. So if I close it, if I go back to Finder, that changes again up at the top. So now all of these are going to be related to Finder, and they will change. So you can see I have different options within Finder. Now if I go to Google Chrome, I'm going to have different options. New tab, new window, so I could open a new window, and that will pop up a whole new window. So that's going to be different than I would have for Microsoft Word or for Pages, their application. That's going to be a little different. Or Google. All that's going to be different based on what you have open at the bottom. Now this is Bluetooth right here. You can see mine says Kelly's phone. One of the things that I will do if I'm out and about and I want to search the internet, but I don't want to do it on the open Wi-Fi at a restaurant where it's vulnerable to somebody stealing my information, you can actually pair a phone. If you've got the option, you can pair your phone. I can use the data from Verizon to run my computer, or my internet, not my computer, but to turn on my internet. So I will do that sometimes, and I do it through this. You'll notice it says Connect to Network right here. So I can do it either through Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi, and I've been using Bluetooth to do it because the Wi-Fi kept dropping. So I've been using the Bluetooth to do it, and so I can just pair them and use my data network. But Bluetooth is good because I can use it to connect. I have a sound bar at home. I could use that to connect to the music from my computer and play music in my house with my soundbar. And it's a short distance. The Bluetooth is not going to be, I'm not going to be able to go from here, 2 miles down the road. It's a relatively short distance. And then of course you have Wi-Fi. This is what I am connected to right now, the resident Wi-Fi. there are all the different options. Even though I'm already connected to this one, you're going to see all of the options. So everybody who has Wi-Fi around here, I could connect to any of these if I had the password. Of course, the padlock means that it's security enabled. You have to have a password to connect to it. So we've got at home, mine is not showing up right now because it's not seeing it. Doesn't see my network. When I go home, it will show my Wi-Fi network that I have available. So if you were to take your computer to a restaurant and you were to work in there, like Panera, then you would see Panera Guest or something pop up. But again, a lot of times you'll have, like I have trouble with Panera. It won't load pages, especially with my phone. It does funny things, but I don't like to do a whole lot on public Wi-Fi. I just don't think it's very secure. And then I have my battery turned on, so this shows you how much battery life you have. So I've got 94%, the date, the time. This is called Spotlight Search. One of the things I like about Spotlight Search, you can search anything on your computer, and you can also do an internet search. It used to just be, it would search your computer for a file. Now you can do an internet search with it too. So if I type in something that I want to know, then I can do that there. We use this sometimes with my daughter when she has to do her word study homework and she needs to look up a definition. So she'll type in the Spotlight, type in the word, and it will show up there. And now with the new operating system, you can use Siri on the Mac. With Sierra, you can use Siri. Now, I cannot use it on here. I've been having troubles with my microphone, but you can ask Siri, click on the microphone, ask Siri a question, and she'll say, what can I help you with? Much like you do on here. And I think one of the reasons they needed to update that is that's a possibility. You can do that on the PC. So they wanted to get that updated. So you can, just like you could use Siri on here, you can use it on here. I don't know about Hey Siri. That's one of the things that, look, I just launched it. On an iPhone, you can enable something called Hey Siri, and that will launch Siri without having to go to Siri to do it. You know how you can hold down the home button? So you don't have to. You can hold down the home button to launch Siri, or you can just, if you've got Hey Siri, you just say, Hey Siri, and you'll be able to talk to her. So that's what she's doing. That would be under here. I'm going to do an Apple, I will be doing an Apple or a phone session, but I can answer that at the end too. That's not a problem. All right, so I'm in Chrome, and you'll notice too that Safari looks a little different. It's got its web pages here, and it's going to ask me if I want to change my default browser. I do not want to change my default browser. I prefer Google Chrome. All right, that's everything. Oh, no, not everything. Over here, you'll notice we've got 3 little lines and some bullet points next to it. This is just going to be little information that you can access, and you can customize this. See at the bottom where it says Edit? If I click on that, it's got these options. This is called Find My Friends. I love this. You know, I noticed one day that my father, when I would go on trips, my dad wasn't calling me anymore to see where I was. He would always call and check in. And this is because this is GPS enabled, so he could watch me driving. So he knew where I was, and he knew I was on the highway. He said, yeah, I'm watching you drive up 95 right now. So this is a little app. So I've got this on here. I could click the plus, and it would put it right here. And then when I close everything, when I say done, all of those options are right here. So there's a quick calculator that I can load, weather, calendar, it's election day, make sure everybody votes. Reminders, I have to use reminders a lot. The date, I have Do Not Disturb on, and I wanted to see, oh, stocks. I just added that this morning just to see what it would do. But you can add those, and those are just little shortcuts, little quick ways, that things you can do to get information, and that's going to be over here on the right-hand side. Now down at the bottom, we have the dock. And this is where I'm going to keep my most used programs. You can shift your icons around. If you click on it with one finger and drag, you can reorganize them. So if I wanted Chrome to be over here, I could just drag it. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to leave it here, and then I'm going to go home and look for Chrome down here all the time. This is System Preferences. This is the same thing. This right here, the gearbox, little gear, is the same thing as clicking on the apple and going up to System Preferences right here. And we'll talk about that again in a few minutes. Finder is always going to be located down here in your dock. That, again, is where you go to look for files on your computer, different locations. That's where you can go. You can also have, if I go, for example, to Documents, I can change the way they are organized, the way they look. Let me see if I can get that bigger. You can always take a corner of a window. See how it changes to a double arrow? You can always take the corner and drag it to make the window bigger, smaller or larger if you want to. But you'll notice that when I clicked on Documents, I have all of these different files. I can change the way that they appear if I want to. So these are just the little tiles. I can change it to a list. I can change it to the columns. And when I do that, when I click on something, it's going to pop up here what's in there. And then I can change it to a list this way. That's my mama and daddy. So you can change it to a list right here. You can add new folder. This little gear, I could add a new folder in here if I wanted to and rename it, whatever I wanted to. I can move, since this file is highlighted, I can move it to the trash. You can always drag something out of the trash easily too. That's not a huge deal. All right, so there's your Finder. Next, it puts Siri in the dock for me once I updated my operating system, and there's Siri. This is the Launchpad. This is basically, if you click the Launchpad, you're going to see all of your available applications. So this is everything that I have loaded on my Mac. Some of them it came with, like Numbers, Keynote, iMovie, GarageBand. Those are all apps that it came with. I added several, like Sling, Kindle. Let me see what else. There's anything. I added Skype, so Zoom. There are lots of different ones that I personally added, but this is basically just where you can launch a program. So it's called the Launchpad because it's got all of your programs, all of your applications listed, and you can go in there and you can launch. So I could actually launch the program from there. All right, next I have Google Chrome. That's again one I added. So I've got that down here in the dock. You can move things out of the dock. I can Launchpad, and then I could slide something out, remove it, or I can move it back down on there. So to do that, you just take one finger, you click it, and you drag it down in the dock, and it will put it in there. Now it's still going to notice it duplicated it. It's not duplicating the program, it's just duplicating the icon. So I have it still under Launchpad, but now it's down here in my dock as well. So if I drag it out of my dock, it's not going to remove it from my computer. It's just taking it off that location, removing it from there. All right, Safari is the default web browser that it comes with. And then Mail, if I click on this, I will be embarrassed because I actually have horrified Meredith in the past with the number of emails that I have on my phone. I think I'm at, let me see, 7,647 unread emails. So many of them are just junk emails, so I just leave them. So if I click on that, it is going to load it because I do have my email set to come into Google. So my Google Mail comes through my app. So this is Gmail that I use. So I'm going to quit it. And next is contacts. I don't really use my contact list. It is something you can, but I don't typically use that. Calendar, you can pop that up. It's going to sync. So I have my Google Calendar. I have a calendar. I actually have an app that I purchased called Fantastical, and it syncs to my computer. So I could look on there as well. Although, honestly, I still use a paper calendar. because I like to be able to open it up and see the big picture. So I do still use paper calendar. Notes is nice because it's a quick way to jot down some information if you want to keep up with something. This is messages. Now messages, Apple's message program is called iMessage. So I cannot text my husband from my computer because he has an Android phone. He has a Samsung. But I can text my sister from my computer because she has an Apple. She has an iPhone. So I can text her from here, or I can text her from here. So if I am doing something on my computer, up here in the right corner, a message will pop in if someone has an iPhone or even an iPod. Like we were talking about my daughter getting an iPod Touch for Christmas maybe. She would be able to use iMessage to message other people with iPhones. Wouldn't be able to use it to message my husband without some kind of third-party app, but she can use it to message him with iMessage. One of the things that you can tell when I use my phone, I can tell who has what kind of phone because messages that come from people with iMessage come across in blue. So you'll notice my sister, see how all of mine is blue to her? When I text my friend Linda, she has an Android phone, so all the texts are green. So that tells me that she does not have an iPhone, so we can't use iMessage. So iMessage is something you can actually text people from your computer using iMessage. And then iTunes is the music, so if you download any music from iTunes, this is where you would find it in your library. And Keynote, I don't even use Keynote. I'm not sure. That's basically, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is their version of PowerPoint. And then I use Microsoft Office still, some. So this is Excel, Word. But I have placed those down in the dock. It didn't come with it. Now, one of the default apps, though, that it does come with is the App Store. So you'll notice that I have the red badge right there with the 1. That just means that there is an app in the App Store that I have that needs to be updated, something they've come up with. And there are apps that do not work. We ran into a problem at the school system where I work. The students used Dragon dictation a lot to help with some of their verbal as they're learning. And so they used Dragon dictation. Well, they came out with a new operating system for the iPhone, and Dragon Dictation did not update their app, so it no longer worked. So sometimes you might run into some issues with the syncing process because the app developer needs to catch up with the new operating system. So this is where you can download an app. Many of them are going to be free. I'll be honest with you, there are plenty of free apps. I rarely pay for an app. It's very, very rare that I pay for one. And there are ways that they make money. They either make it up front by charging you for the app before you download it, or they'll have what are called in-app purchases, where you can buy things in the app if you want to upgrade to the Pro version. Or for a lot of people with games, they will let you buy things within the game. I never, ever do that, personally. And then system preferences. This is going to be kind of where you make your personalized changes. I'll do that in just a second. Photos is going to be the same that you have on your phone, so those are going to sync. And then dashboard, I like dashboard because it's basically just what are called some widgets, some interactive stuff that's going on in the background. So you can add, like dictionary, I could type in the dictionary, and one of the reasons I like something like this for me personally is I have a 9-year-old daughter. I don't want her surfing the internet, but like I said before, she needs to use the dictionary sometimes for her word study, so she can just type in the word right here. Quick calculator, weather, I'm a little obsessed with the weather. You can click and drag these around, so you can customize where you want them. You can move them on your desktop background. So I like these just because they are a good way to do some quick stuff. You can add new ones right here, any that are available, or you can remove them. See how it starts shaking just like it did with it does with the iPhone? You have to have the X, though, in order to be able to move it. So you can't remove the world clock. You can't remove the weather app. There are some apps that Apple has installed that they will not allow you to remove, which is a good thing because you don't want system preferences to disappear. And then there are some options where you can download more widgets from the internet as well, from Apple. And one of the things that I do like about Apple, they are pretty rigorous in their process of approving apps and going through it, so you don't really have to worry so much about. And there was a virus on one recently, but you don't have to worry as much about it as you might with other operating systems. All right, and this is, I'm going to go back to system preferences. If you click on the little gear box right here, here is system preferences, and this is where you would go to make some adjustments to some of the way it operates. So general, that's going to tell me or give me options to do different things, just the appearance, what the buttons, the menus, the icons look like, what the default web browser is going to be. I can change that to either Safari or Google Chrome. Those are the only two web browsers that I have downloaded, so those are my only two options. My links there. You've got highlight color, blue, sidebar icon, medium. So this is where you can change some of your icon sizes if you need to. Scroll bars, jump to the next page. And I'm getting to the point where I probably need to increase my font size a little bit. I keep arguing with the eye doctor, but I'm going to lose that battle one day. So you can see that these are the different options that I have under General. Desktop and screensaver. Typically with computers, there's more than one way to do something. So remember I showed you earlier that you can double click on that desktop and it will let you change the background. You can do that here as well. So if I go right here to desktop and screensaver, I can change that. Now this is just my desktop picture. If I click right here where it says screensaver, that would be a screensaver. So if I want to choose one, that just means that after a period of time, my screen is going to go black, and then it's going to do the bubbles or whatever it is that you want that will help keep it from doing anything you don't want to, I guess burning in. This little arrow right here will take me back to where I was a second ago. This is the dock. This gives you options for the dock, how large and small. See, I can change the size of it. I don't know why anybody would want it that tiny. I couldn't see a thing. But you can change the size of your dock here. Magnification, you can change how large it is. Where you want your dock, so left, bottom, or right. I keep mine on the bottom just because I'm used to it. You can minimize the window, it's just how it looks. And how your tabs are when you're opening documents. Mission control. This again is just going to give you an overview of your open windows, thumbnails, applications, and you can change some of your preferences, how you want that to look. Remember too, there are typically keyboard shortcuts for a lot of different things. For example, if I wanted to quit system preferences, if I didn't want to use it anymore, I could hold down the Command key and type Q, and that will close that. So if I want to close this, Command Q, and it's going to close that. So that's what's called a keyboard shortcut, a way you can do that to shut stuff. Command is basically the equivalent of a PC's control. So with Command, that's where you're going to be operating different. If you want to do keyboard shortcuts, you're typically going to use Command. Now the caps lock key on here does have a light on it, which I like, and PCs typically don't. Maybe some of the laptops do, but I have to tell you, the other day, a friend of mine said at work said, my keyboard's not working. And I said, it's not working. She said, no, caps lock is on and it will not turn off. So I took another keyboard down there and we unplugged hers and we plugged the new keyboard in. And she said, the light is still on. And I was like, okay, the light can't be on because we have it unplugged. So I look over, I didn't know she was looking, there was an orange sparkle on her caps lock key, and she thought that was a light on. So I brushed it off and I said, your keyboard still works, the caps lock is not on, you're fine. And we laughed about it for about 2 days. So, but that is so something I would have done, so we laughed about it. All right, language, I think that's pretty easy. Security and privacy. One of the things, they have something called File Vault, which is good, but one of the things it says you need your login, password, or recovery key to access your data. So it secures it, it encrypts everything. The only downside to it is if you forget your password, it's a problem. You cannot forget your password. And if you're like me, I have several different passwords depending on what I'm using. So you want to make sure that you have that password secured if you use FireVault. I have mine turned off, which is probably not wise, but I was really afraid I was going to forget my password and then have to reset my whole computer, like reset it back to brand new. So I didn't want to do that. But I do have my firewall turned up on, so that just helps with security purposes and privacy as well. I want certain apps to be able to find your location. Obviously those with any kind of GPS, I would want to use that. The one thing is the more you have going on in the background, the faster it's going to eat your battery. Faster it's going to kill your battery. All right, and Spotlight, that's just where we talked about earlier. That's this up here. And so that's going to, you can uncheck anything that you don't want Spotlight to do. Notifications, that's your badge. You can turn on Do Not Disturb, which I really like. I have Do Not Disturb on my phone so that my phone's not dinging and beeping and carrying on at night. So if I'm asleep, I don't want it to wake up. One thing that I did not factor in, I did get an Apple Watch last year, and it has the kind of this touch or the buzz, so nobody knows. If I get a text or a phone call, I know immediately I've got one because it's buzzing, but you can't hear it or it'll tap. But I have fallen asleep more than once and it's awakened me because it's buzzing or tapping on here, doing something. So it syncs though with the phone and the computer. But one of the nice things that I like is that you can turn on Do Not Disturb, and if you leave your computer up, it's not going to ding at you. Because when I have iMessage, if my sister texts me, it will ding and let me know that she has texted me. So I can turn it off, or I can turn it off so that I'm not disturbed overnight. Displays, that's just going to be your display, what it looks like, how it shows. But that is not ideal for this, the way I've got it set up, so I'm going to go back. And this is not, I don't have what's called Retina display. If you have a MacBook Pro, or there's the MacBook, there's one that's just the MacBook, not the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro, you can get the Retina display, which is the super high resolution screen. So as you know, the more you add with Apple, the pricier the computer gets. But the upside to that is, I think you're not replacing your computer every couple of years. So it's really worth it because I've had this computer for 2 years and I'm nowhere near needing to replace it. Whereas my HP, when I got it at the end of 2 years, the battery wasn't holding a charge. I was getting the blue screen all the time of death. So now I use this and I don't have that. Energy saver, I can turn it on, put hard disk to sleep when possible. So that just kind of shuts everything down temporarily. I can wake it up just pressing my trackpad. And you can see too that if I enable power nap, it's going to periodically check for new email. I don't do that just because it doesn't bother me at all to check my email to wait for it to load just for a second. I don't do that because that's just going to be running the program in the background a little bit. Keyboard, brightness, but I can do that on here. I can adjust the brightness. You can't tell on there, it doesn't ever show up, but you can change your brightness on here. And it's going to automatically turn the backlight off. All of these basically are just to save your battery, these kinds of things, or just to extend your battery life. You can, like I said before, it's not seeing a mouse, but if I were to plug in, the problem is the little dongle, the little thing that you plug in to the USB, put it back in the mouse when you're not using it, or you're going to end up like me and have 3 mice with no dongles. So now I've got all these mice and they're useless because I keep losing. I plug it, it goes somewhere, and I don't know what I've done with it. So it adds up when you're spending $15, $10 here and there to buy a new mouse. But you can easily connect a USB or a mouse to USB, and I love doing that because it's just so much easier. And this is the trackpad. This is what I was telling you about earlier. Scroll, use 2 fingers. If you use 2 fingers to scroll, it will give you a visual too to show you. So you can scroll up and down on a page with 2 fingers. You can pinch zoom. So if you pinch on your trackpad, it's going to zoom in or out. Smart zoom, if you double tap with 2 fingers, it just pops it in, kind of zooms in that page a little bit better. And then you can rotate a picture on there as well. You know how sometimes we take pictures and they end up sideways or upside down? You can rotate a picture on there easily. This would be adding a printer. I've added my own printer at home, so this is where I could do that. Sound, you can just change the volume, the level. That's pretty self-explanatory. iCloud, this is going to back up. You'll notice I've got these selected, and that's to back up. The only problem with it is if you don't pay for, you only get like 5 gigabytes, I think, for free. Well, nobody has that little amount of data and information, so they'll charge you monthly, and you can buy more space, but just keep in mind that you'll have to pay for it every month. But this is going to tell you what you're backing up, what you're saving right here. If you go to iCloud. The App Store, that is automatically, you can check. See, I've got new updates, automatically check for new updates. Again, you don't have to do that. If you turn that off, then it's probably going to preserve a little bit of your battery. Again, I think these hold good battery power. I've had this at 89%. It's at 89%. I had it charged this morning. My old HP would be down to 50 by now. It's just, they typically have a good battery life. And I think they said when I bought it, it was like 10,000 recharge cycles. So I don't keep it plugged in all the time. I don't keep my phone plugged in all the time. I wait for them to get down. Now this is suffering a little bit. I've had this 2 years, and I've noticed that it's not holding the charge that it used to. All right, Bluetooth, that's again where I can turn it off or I can connect to something. I can do that up here as well. And then date and time, time machine, flash, all of these little. Flash is not available on an iPhone or an iPad. You can't, if you want to watch a video that's flash enabled, you can't do it on one of those. Because my understanding is basically they didn't like each other in real life, the people, Steve Jobs, and they had a falling out, so he wouldn't allow flash on the Mac or the iPhone. Hopefully, most programs seem to be moving away from flash, but there are some that are still there. One of the things you can change, you can add users right here, so if you've got somebody else on there, and then parental controls, which I'm assuming most of you won't need to bother with unless you have grandchildren coming over, but that is something that would be very helpful for me with my 9-year-old, especially getting to the age she's getting, where she's curious about everything, asking me all the hard questions. This is the trash down here in the dock, and these are all the downloads that I had temporarily downloaded. If I want to empty it, I just use both fingers to click once, and that's the right click, and I can empty the trash. It's going to ask me if I want to empty it, and it empties everything out of there. All right, so are there any questions so far?
It would be easier if I could read the phone.
I know, it's tiny up here, it's very small. But keep in mind that when you are looking at it on your computer, if you're looking at it, everything that's typed up here is going to be related to what you have open down here in the dock. And generally, the menus are going to be similar. Just like you have on a PC, you're going to have File, Edit. Now with the Chrome, I've got the history right here. That's all of the web pages that I've gone to recently, the history. So if you want to get back to somewhere like this apple pie I made the other day, and I closed the window, I could go to history, and there it is right there. So it's going to show you, or there it is right here. It's going to show you what you've done. And you can delete the history, but you can just go back and get to a web page from there.
And which one is history?
That is under Google Chrome because that was the web page that I was using. So if I go to Word, for example, you're not going to see history like you did because it's not a web browser. So all of these menus are now going to be related to Word. So I've got File, Edit, View, Insert. So this is where all of this changes because these are all options that I have only with Microsoft Word and not with, because I'm not using Google Chrome anymore.
Was the word processing program that you got automatically as good as Microsoft Word?
It's good. Pages. The reason I got Microsoft Word is because I had so many things in it.
Already.
You can also, though, one thing I will tell you that does help. Let me see if I can find.
And you had to buy a new copy of Microsoft Word, or could you?
I use what's called 365.
Uh-huh.
So it's a yearly subscription, and you pay, $69 a year, and it never goes away. And the reason I do that too is because you can save to the cloud, so I don't have to save on my computer. I can save the documents to the cloud. I am getting ready to get rid of it because I've got a free copy with my job, and so I get to 365, so I'm going to have to back up everything anyway and save it before I get rid of it. But Pages, one of the things that I do like about Pages, if you go into it, that's their version.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Let me just open this. This is the page that I had going. If you go into Pages, if I'm not mistaken, one of the things I like about it is I can go to Export To and export it to Word. So it will make the necessary adjustments so that it can be opened in Microsoft Word for somebody who has Word instead, because not everybody has a Mac. So if you export it as a Word document, they'll be able to open it. The only thing you might run into is if you have some fonts that they don't have, it will find a font that's most closely associated with the font that you created it in. So you can export. You can also export to PDF, which means that it cannot be altered. It's just a read-only file, so you could do that too. But I do like that you can export to Word so that people with Word can open it, because that's still, besides Google Docs is really popular because I could share a document with you in Google Docs, and I could watch you changing it and editing it right in front of me. So a lot of people will use Google Docs now because it's free too. Mm-hmm. So that's the first huge competition, I think, for Microsoft.
Now somebody sends you something and says, I can't open what you sent me, and basically it's because they're using a PC and
Mm-hmm.
they're using Word,
Mm-hmm.
and I use Pages.
Mm-hmm.
So that irritates me because I think, hell, I can open your stuff. How come you can't open that?
Well, that's where you want to go to File. Before you send that, you want to go to File, Export To, right here. So I went up to File, Export to Word, and then it converts it to a Word document. So when they receive it, they're opening it as a Word document, so they can read it from you.
Okay.
So if you just do that, it'll take care of that problem. Mm-hmm.
Kelly,
Yes.
I created in Pages documents, and when I save them,
Uh-huh.
it goes automatically to iCloud.
Uh-huh.
But then when I pull them up, it says waiting. Does
Okay.
that mean it's not actually in iCloud?
It should be. Do you have internet connection when you're doing that?
Do I have what?
Internet connection?
I'm not sure.
Because that's one thing you've got to make sure you're connected to, because the cloud is going to be
Okay.
off of your computer, and you need to make sure you're connected to the internet to
So
access
I
it.
do that by using Safari.
Well, you want to check right here and make sure this is on.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have that connected to a network, like I have Resident, I'm on the Resident network. If you don't have that connected to a network, then you're not going to be able to access the cloud because you're not using the internet. You don't have the internet capability at that point. If it's searching, and you know that it saves it to,
I can pull it back up.
right?
And I think I'm pulling it up from iCloud, but I'm not sure because of that word under each document is saying waiting,
Okay.
like it's inside waiting to get in.
And it could be, if you don't have the internet connection, it could be waiting. If you can always move it to, if you want to, like, oops, what did I do with it? If I wanted to go to File, let me cancel that. File. Well, now, oh, stop. Move to, and then I could choose a place on my computer to move it to if I wanted to save it on my actual computer instead of the cloud. I mean, the cloud's a good place because it's going to be, you don't have to worry about your computer crashing and not being able to access because you could do it anywhere, but you do want to make sure that you can access it
Okay.
later.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say iCloud and iPad and iPhone work beautifully together. My pocketbook was stolen. With my iPad, I was able to trace where it was going, and when it finally got turned in, I was able to go, and fortunately, it was.
I can't believe they left it on. She said that that they worked beautifully together, that her purse was stolen with her iPad in it, and they were able to track her iPad down. And
I had the iPad, it was the iPhone that was.
oh, the iPhone was in there. She had the iPad, so she could find her phone on the iPad and track it. And that's just not, the thing is, though, a lot of times people will turn it off, and then you can't track it. So that was, you were very fortunate that they didn't turn it off and they were able to track it down. That's amazing. But my sister had hers stolen. She got her new phone and she had it a week and she had it stolen out of a bathroom. And they tried to call the phone and immediately the people shut the phone off because they were new and they just reset it. But it is good. Find my phone, I use it all the time, and I can do that with my watch. This has changed my life because I set my phone down all the time at home and I have no idea where I put it. So if I click this little thing on here, watch what it does. It pings my phone and I'm like, I can find you. So sometimes I have to ping it about 20 times before I finally, and I'm listening all over the house, but I can find it now.
What's the difference? I mean, you're talking cloud,
Yes.
and that means that somehow you can have everything saved to the cloud, right?
Right.
And you're talking Google Chrome.
Okay.
Explain that.
Well, there are different clouds.
Repeat the question.
Okay, she's asking the difference between, sorry about that, cloud and Google Chrome. So they're basically both going to be versions of clouds. They're just owned by different people. And so they're going to store the information on their servers so that you don't have to take up space on your computer to save the application or to save the whatever you've done, the information, thank you, that you've done. So with iCloud, that's Apple's version. So you can save your information to iCloud and they will be responsible for maintaining it and making sure that it's secure. Although I don't know how secure anything is now since Equifax was hacked. So they are tasked with maintaining that information. Google is just another version. They have what's called Google Drive, Gmail. So it's a lot of different programs that you can use within one company. So with, for example, Google Sheets, that is their version of Word. So when you save something, there is no save on Google Docs, or Google Sheets is their version of Excel. Google Docs is their version of Word. There's no save option, so you can't go to File.
What's the word processing program we use?
Microsoft Word or Pages?
No, I'm talking about
Pages.
Apple.
Pages.
Pages.
Yeah, Pages. So, and I'm hearing you talk about what what other people use,
Mm-hmm.
but I use all Pages.
That's fine. You can use whatever you want to. She said she's talking about different programs that other people use, but she uses Pages.
Yeah, but you keep bringing them up, and I'm wondering why, 'cause
Because they can be used on the Apple. Because each one of these is a possibility. So I can I can buy Microsoft Word and I can use it on my Mac.
okay.
Or I can use Google Docs on my Mac or Mac. I can use Pages on my Mac. So it just depends on what your preference is as to what you want to use. So all of those are possibilities that you have with a Mac. That's why I'm not going to bring up a program that you can't use on here.
Okay, I get it.
All right, anything else?
I'm still not understanding the use of Chrome. I have an HP computer
Mm-hmm.
and an Apple iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So do I have a choice of using the Chrome or the Google? And are you paying for the Chrome when
No.
you use it? Or what?
She wants to know if you have a choice of using Chrome. She has Chrome on her HP computer and on her iPhone, and wants to know if you have a choice. Yes, you do have a choice. They're free. They're just web browsers. It's basically essentially somebody owns something different, but it gets you to the same task. I mean, it's kind of like my husband has a Ford, I have a Nissan. It can both get us to the same location. It's just going to get us there differently. So they are free. It's a web browser, and that's just a way for you to search the internet. So it's a free download, but you can do it on your HP or your phone, because I use Chrome on here too. You can use it on there too. The iPad, you can use it on there. So you can use it you've got multiple options. Safari is Apple's. That's what they use. That's their default program to search the web. All right, I believe we are out of time. Thank you for coming. If you have any other questions, feel free to come up and I'll see if I can answer those. But I enjoyed being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.